Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our annual Women's Leadership Conference 2022. It's great to see everyone here. Well, I can't see you, but hoping definitely next year we're going to get back to in-person. And AMCHAM Trinidad and Tobago is hoping to start our in-person events from our next event and certainly from the AGM going forward. Let me do this properly. I'm Nirad Tiwari. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the CEO of this illustrious organization. Justice Helen Whitner, Supreme Court Justice, Washington Supreme Court in the United States. Mr. Shante Moore, who is the Charge d'Affaires of the U.S. Embassy in Trinidad and Tobago, and members of the Diplomatic Corps. Our President, Tony Sergio Ramnarine, President of AMCHAM T&T, and members of the Board of Directors of AMCHAM Trinidad and Tobago, our very distinguished speakers and panelists, ladies and gentlemen, sponsors, members of the media, a very, very pleasant good morning to you all. I must start by thanking our platinum sponsors, Scotiabank, BPTT, and FedEx, our gold sponsors, the National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago, Unicoma Trinidad Limited, 3M, Methanex, EXIM Bank, and our silver sponsor, the Kenson Group of Companies, and our ever faithful media partner, Heartbeat Radio 104.1 FM. Thanks very, very much for all of your support. You know, to all the amazing women and men who support and who do our part, just want to say thanks for taking the time to join us. I was very pleased that some people yesterday in speaking to them said that this is one of the events that they don't miss in their calendar, in their business calendar. So hopefully we are making some progress. So I have the honor of welcoming everyone to one of our flagship events. It's our 8th Women's Leadership Conference. Before I proceed though, I have to take a moment to address some housekeeping matters. All of today's sessions, including the opening ceremony, will be recorded, and therefore by continuing to participate, you are acknowledging that you have given your consent to be recorded. Again, special thanks to our sponsors. I don't think we could ever recognize them enough. Platinum sponsors, Scotiabank, BPTT, FedEx. Gold sponsors, the National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago, Unicoma, 3M, Methanex, and EXIM Bank, and our silver sponsor, the Kenson Group of Companies. And as I said, our media partner, Heartbeat Radio for Women, 104.1 FM. Today, we're here to celebrate many of the accomplishments of women in leadership, but also to engage in conversation and conversations around breaking the bias. Part of breaking the bias is creating the conditions for conversation. And I will admit, as a man, I'm blind to my blind spots. I don't know what I don't know. And sometimes I don't know how to ask. And sometimes I need to be told. So I will ask one thing, which is that both women and men help us men who create the barriers deliberately and inadvertently to identify our blind spots and to talk about what we can do better, understanding that not everyone in the same gender sees everything the same way. So I note that when Sheryl Sandberg wrote Lean In, a lot of people agreed, but a lot of people disagreed with some of the things that she said. And so I'm sure there are different views, different ways to approach things. And so I guess in a way I'm appealing for help to do better. Because many of us want to be allies and think that we are, and we may be in the main, but that doesn't mean that we can't do better. And as part of doing better, please note that the registration for our AMCHAM Trinidad and Tobago and IDB Women in Leadership Mentorship Program is open every year. We arrange with the IDB, in partnership with the IDB, a mentorship for, I think the highest we got to last year was 29, 30 women. And we pair them with mentors. And this is a great, great program and a good way for us to actually make a difference as we seek to break the bias. So at this point, I want to stop speaking and introduce our president, AMCHAM Trinidad and Tobago's president, Tony Sergio Ramnarine, to offer official welcome remarks. And we're very proud that, you know, we've gotten to gender parity on the board. In fact, last year we had more females than males on the board. And that is just testimony. And I want to make this point again, that there is no shortage of qualified women for leadership positions in Trinidad and Tobago, and I dare say in any country around the world. One such is Tony Sergio Ramnarine, who holds the position of Vice President, Corporate Operations and Transformation at LNG producer Atlantic. Tony has senior strategic leadership oversight of digital strategy, information and technology systems, sustainability and corporate communications, administration and property services, and strategy and optimization. With over 25 years of experience in the oil and gas industry, Tony has held senior leadership responsibilities within the fields of engineering, business development, project development, and management. Corporate communications, planning, and information technology are also some of the roles that she has performed. Tony holds an MSc in International Management from King's College London and is a qualified chemical engineer from the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, where she was named one of the university's distinguished alumni. She's currently the president of AMCHAM, as you know. She's also a director of the Loan for Enterprise and Network Development and of structural engineering firm KS&P Limited. In addition, she's a member of the Association of Professional Engineers of Trinidad and Tobago. Tony is married with 3 children and enjoys cooking, listening to good music, watching sports, and vacationing with her family. Please welcome Ms. Tony Sergio Ramnarine.
Thank you very much, Nirad. Justice Helen Whitener, Supreme Court Justice, Washington Supreme Court. Charge d'Affaires Shante Moore, U.S. Embassy in Trinidad and Tobago, and members of the U.S. Diplomatic Corps. Board of Directors of AMCHAM and CEO of AMCHAM T&T, Nirad Tiwari. Our distinguished speakers and panelists. And I know Nirad took some time to go through our sponsors, but please permit me to also add my thanks and greetings to our platinum sponsors, Scotiabank, BPTT, FedEx, our gold sponsors, the National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago, Unicoma Trinidad Limited, 3M, Methanex, and Exim Bank. Our silver sponsor, Kenson Group of Companies. Our media partner, Heartbeat Radio 104.1 FM. Members of the media and participants, very good morning to all of you, and welcome to AMCHAM T&T's 8th Women's Leadership Conference. And thank you for joining us virtually today as we seek to celebrate and elevate the voices of women in our society and around the world. AMCHAM T&T has proudly hosted this conference every year in commemoration of International Women's Day, because we believe that by supporting and highlighting the barriers to the progress of women, we are doing our part, creating a gender-equal world. Not only does it make good economic sense to do this, but it's also the right thing to do. Before I go any further, I want to take a moment to acknowledge this year's exceptional and accomplished speakers. Each offers a wealth of knowledge and experience that I'm sure will provide insights into many of the factors that hinder women's progress and growth in society. I also want to thank the companies and NGOs that are joining us today for all the work that they have done in bringing an increased awareness to these issues and for their sponsorship and participation in today's conference. Today, a lot of our conversations will be centered around this year's International Women's Day theme, Break the Bias. This refers to the many individual and institutional challenges that place a limit on the progress women can make and the factors that restrict their rights to fairness, justice, and equality in society. Despite the gains we have made in recent years, there is still so much more work that needs to be done. And right now, issues such as the pandemic, climate change, and geopolitical conflicts are undermining the progress women have made and threatening their lives and livelihoods around the world. Women on the front lines of the pandemic have faced disproportionate impacts in employment, education, healthcare, and gender-based violence. Women on the front lines of climate change impacts face an increased risk of extreme poverty. Women on the front lines of escalating global tensions are displaced, disinherited, and impoverished either as widows or refugees, and are easy targets for crimes such as rape, sexual torture, and sexual exploitation. As women, we know these issues very well because this has been our reflection both in the rearview mirror as well as the vision we have for our futures every time we choose to speak up, to challenge, and to demand better for our lives. The question is, how are we going to change this? Today, we are asked to break the bias. So often, when we are dealing with problems with marginalized groups, we fail to acknowledge their existence or their problems. We must change this. Therefore, breaking the bias means rooting out negative stereotypes and prejudices against women. Breaking the bias means calling out sexism, protecting women from gender-based violence, and ending discrimination by both men and women. Breaking the bias means investing in diversity policies to create more inclusive and equitable places. Breaking the bias means reflecting on what may be our own unconscious bias and examining how this manifests so that we can prevent it from recurring. Breaking the bias means having honest conversations about these issues and working together to create a gender-equal world. And that is what today's conference is all about. Perhaps a starting point would be to look at how we address gender-based violence in society. If the 1,757 cases of domestic violence reported by the Victims and Witness Support Unit during the period January 2020 to November 2021 can be used as an indicator, it tells us that this is a problem for us all. More than likely, we all know someone who is a victim of gender-based violence. With just one case being too many, we need to take ownership of this problem. No longer must this be seen as a job only for law enforcement and NGOs. And here is where private sector can lead. AMCHAM T&T's Anti-Gender-Based Violence Initiative with our partners at the Institute for Gender and Development Studies and the Coalition Against Domestic Violence is an initiative that seeks to prevent gender-based violence and abuse in the workplace by helping companies develop a workplace policy that supports employees who are survivors of gender-based violence. The initiative has proven worthwhile, with 95% of participants indicating that the prevalence of violence against women affects workplace productivity, and 66% said they wanted their companies to do more to address gender-based violence against women in the workplace. Yet, so far, participation rates have been disappointing. We need more companies to step up and to take the lead on this very important issue. Get in contact with us and let's bring an end to gender-based violence. Leadership on this issue from the private sector can also begin with addressing our workplace culture and strategy at tackling violence and harassment. We should also ensure that we have a clear reporting procedure and grievance mechanisms to take action when needed. Additional steps would require us to align anti-gender-based violence policies with our core business objectives to change societal norms and behaviors on gender-based violence, sexual harassment, and other unacceptable behaviors. That means stopping the sexualization and objectification of women in the workplace. And this is where men can lead by holding each other to account. When sexism occurs, see it, name it, stop it. It's that simple. Ultimately, what all of this comes down to is investing in better diversity and inclusion policies, since so much of the disparity that women face are in the workplace. It begins with our recruitment and hiring processes and goes all the way to the opportunities or lack thereof for the promotion and advancement of women. The limited options we provide send the message that women are inferior, undeserving, and powerless. Perhaps that's why 50%, that is half of all of the companies that are currently listed on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, have a board consisting of less than 25% women. This has to change. This is 2022. Surely we all know competent women who can serve on boards. And if you don't, ask around. We can help. As Nirad mentioned earlier, there are more than 50% board members on AMCHAM's current board that are women. But it's not just about creating a space at the table and making women feel that they should be grateful for the seat. It's about investing in women's potential to create more opportunities. It's about placing value on their contributions. So let's look forward to seeing more of our country's boards being comprised of multiple women and not just the token one. Now is the time to lead if we really want to break the bias. The government has made progress through recent amendments to the Domestic Violence Amendment Act, the creation of the Gender-Based Violence Unit in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and through ongoing debates to amend the Sexual Offences Act, which will widen protections for women who are victims of digital-based offences. In this context of widening societal and economic inequalities, we need to urge governments to use budgets as a tool to achieve social justice objectives concurrently with economic objectives. Therefore, we can promote gender equality by incorporating a gender perspective at all levels of our budgetary process, including restructuring revenues and expenditures. These objectives must be clearly defined and measurable, with reporting on progress year on year. Imagine if we were doing this all along. We would have already started to enforce provisions that cater to the experience of women's and men's lives in national budgets to advance gender equity rather than reinforcing existing inequalities. I am certain that our expert speakers will be covering these issues in their discussions today. Conferences like this are necessary, but it is just a start. What we need is a more sustained and coordinated effort by all interest groups to recognize that these problems not only exist, but to acknowledge that they also leave many victims. So let's take what we learned today back to our offices and to our leaders, and let's work together to create a gender equal world that values, uplifts, and respects both women and men. Let's redefine leadership to make it more welcoming to more voices, more opinions, and more opportunities. Let's promote greater diversity and inclusion to fulfill the promise of equality. Let's celebrate our distinct differences so that we choose love over hate every time. And let's break the bias to protect the freedoms and human rights for all of our citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much, and I really do hope you enjoy today's session and you gain a lot of useful insights.
Well said. Well said. Thank you, Tony. I think, I mean, the sincerity in that speech came right through, and I certainly can pledge to see it, name it, and stop it as a man. It's a little thing that we can do from our perspective, but a big thing that we can do in trying to break the bias and not condone and allow gender-based, not just bias, but in some cases worse, in our workplaces, but in our social spaces as well. I think we have a responsibility to do that everywhere that we are. Every man who is here in part, and often in large part due to relationships and lessons and support that they would have received, not just from other men, but from women as well. And of course, I stand here on the shoulders of giants of women who are in my life, not least of which are my wife and my mother, and all of the women in AMCHAM Trinidad and Tobago who teach by doing, quite frankly. So Tony, thanks very much for that speech and those pointers. I think they will resonate quite deeply with a lot of people. So as mentioned earlier, events such as this one can't happen if we're unable to attract sponsors who believe in the causes that we're fighting for. And this year, we're proud that we have 3 platinum sponsors, 2 of whom have been regulars. Scotiabank has been with us since the very, very beginning in making this happen. And it's really a pleasure to welcome Ms. Gail Passos, who is the Senior Vice President and Managing Director of Scotiabank Trinidad and Tobago Limited, but is also a former director of AMCHAM Trinidad and Tobago. And so we definitely consider her part of the AMCHAM Trinidad and Tobago family, and was on the board during the period where we were actively trying to address our gender inequity and fix it. So we're very happy to have Gail here today. She was appointed to this position, which is the Senior Vice President and Managing Director of Scotiabank Trinidad and Tobago Limited, and Head Caribbean South and East on May 1st of last year, 2021. There, she is responsible for developing and implementing local business strategy for the region in the retail, commercial, insurance, and wealth divisions. Over her 25-year-plus career with Scotiabank, Gail has held a number of progressively senior leadership roles with the bank. She was appointed head of corporate and commercial banking in 2011 and successfully led her team to deepen commercial relationships and grow market share. In 2015, Gail moved on to lead risk management and was promoted to the role of Vice President and Chief Risk Officer, Caribbean South and East, where she fostered a high-performance risk culture, strengthening financial and non-financial risk oversight across the region. In 2019, as part of her leadership development, Gail was seconded to a position within Western Canada, leading a large retail distribution team. And that's when we lost her from the board, but on to bigger and better things. So Gail is currently a director on various Scotiabank subsidiary boards and recently accepted roles to serve as director on the board of United Way Trinidad and Tobago and on the Sick Kids Caribbean Initiative Advisory Committee. Before we welcome Gail, I just want to take a quick second to thank Cindy at Scotiabank for all that she does to make this event a success. And of course, we're going to have one of our other directors who is also at Scotiabank, Tricia De La Rosa, moderate a session later on. So at this point though, we welcome Ms. Gail Passos.
Hi everyone, I'm so happy to be here this morning for what is now Scotiabank's 8th year of collaborating with AMCHAM on this fantastic Women's Leadership Conference. I am proud that we continue to work with AMCHAM on this initiative. We're here today to talk about breaking the bias. Bias impacts women, especially in the workplace. and it's important that we do what we can to raise awareness and dismantle those biases that inhibit advancements for women. Why fighting bias matters. Bias includes the stereotypes and opinions which either consciously or unconsciously influence how we treat with our co-workers, subordinates, associates, and just about anyone we interact with. While we know it's morally wrong to treat with anyone differently based on prejudice, it's often impossible to avoid bias. No matter how unbiased we think we are, we may have subconscious negative opinions about people who are outside of our group. The more exposed we are to groups of people, the less likely that we are to feel prejudiced against others. Bias leads us to gravitate towards people who are like ourselves, either in terms of gender, race, age, income, personality type, or some other factor. 2 years into the pandemic shows us that we're in a crisis for women. Millions of women globally have been driven out of the workforce by COVID-19. Many more are struggling with burnout and considering downshifting their careers or leaving their jobs. To avoid unwinding years of progress towards gender equality, companies need to take actions to support women in the workplace. Combating the biases women face is critical to getting it right. Almost 3 in 4 women experience bias at work, and those that do are more likely to leave. Women of color, LGBTQ+ women, and women with disabilities face more acute biases. Yet only 1 of 3 employees, including managers, challenges biased behavior when they see it. Knowing that bias exists isn't enough. We need to act. Having women and other diverse voices in leadership roles is good for business, and we as business leaders are responsible for working towards positive change. As an executive with years of experience leading international teams, I can share the following ideas when it comes to fighting bias. Examine your own unconscious bias. Once we recognize our own biases, and yes, we all have them, we can address the reasons behind them and make conscientious behavioral change. You can do this by striving to surround yourself with people who hold opposing points of view. Being challenged rather than having every member of your team agree with you all the time is good. It often leads to more productive discussions and innovative solutions. Speak up or nothing will ever change. If every manager and employee were to speak up every time they encountered bias, we would have reached that elusive tipping point and effected lasting change a long time ago. Encourage others to speak up. This may be the most important point of all. No matter what type of bias your team or organization may encounter, the key is meeting a critical mass of supporters. We also need male allies who understand how vital unbiased behaviors are to the success of the organization. Strengthening your relationships with both male and female leaders will help you build a solid team committed to speaking up and effecting lasting change. Allyship is key in breaking bias. We need to come together to act as allies for women. We can all help to advance a culture of inclusion by taking intentional, positive action to promote and support a group we may not necessarily be a part of. Everyone deserves to bring their whole self to work and thrive in an environment that is inclusive, safe, and reflective of all communities. Everyone can be an ally, and everyone can benefit from allyship. By dedicating yourself to education and action, we can learn how to stand up for our colleagues and take accountability as strong and effective allies. When we advocate for each other, we rise together. So what is Scotiabank's approach to diversity and inclusion? I am proud to be a part of an organization that truly values diversity and equality in the workplace. Terms such as breaking the bias and allyship are everyday actions for us. They form a significant part of how we lead. We know the most important investment is the one that we make in our people. We unlock our employees' potential through bias-free practices and one set of inclusive values across Scotiabank. Scotiabank has many initiatives, including employee resource groups that operate globally, advancing diversity and inclusion mandates. Members are committed to educating and empowering women by supporting their personal and professional growth. And our dedicated action has resulted in progress. Globally, 32% of our vice presidents and above are women, while in the Caribbean and Central America, women make up 38% of the vice president and above pool. Additionally, unit directors within our operational framework comprise 51% women. Focusing now on Trinidad and Tobago, 53% of our senior management team are women, and we boast 46% representation at the unit director level. I'm also happy to report that Scotiabank Trinidad and Tobago has just about 60% of women on its board. We've also made bold moves in recent times, advancing our diversity and inclusion agenda. In April 2021, employees' insurance medical benefits was extended to same-sex partners, making Scotiabank the first in the industry to introduce this for its employees. In February 2020, we introduced a new global standard for parental leave. The expanded policies for Trinidad and Tobago include the following major changes. Maternity leave will move from 14 weeks to 16 weeks. Paternity leave will move from 3 days to 4 weeks. Adoption and gestational surrogacy eligibility. Through employee feedback, 94% of our employees believe in building and supporting an inclusive workforce. I challenge all business leaders to take active steps to strengthen our organizations through diversity, drive innovation through our differences and constructive discussion, and to build a more inclusive workforce by extending opportunities to all who are qualified. If a majority of people become committed to making small changes around this important issue, the implications are limitless. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference and take away some great insights to help you make your own bold moves while we continue to break the bias and ally on.
Thank you very much, Gail. As always, very insightful and precise, very helpful. So, I mean, the one sort of personal thing I'd get from that not in terms of what to do, is a risk that I can avoid is I certainly don't want to be around a whole lot of people who are just like me. So I guess in that sense, I can more easily get the views of other people, of people who think a little differently. So up next is Nadia McCarthy, who is the head of people and culture for BP Trinidad and Tobago, another long-standing partner of this conference. And of course, we have to thank Giselle Thompson and her team for all of the support that they provide with this as well. I know Nadia will, I assume Nadia will talk about it, but I think it's worthy of us to recognize that BPTT now has gender parity in its executive leadership team. But more than that, they've committed to working that through to the next level of leadership so that there's a pipeline. And I think that's really fantastic. So congrats to BP and BP Global, and we are very grateful for the partnership with us. So as a member of the BPTT leadership team, Nadia holds overall accountability for the human resources, culture transformation, agility, and workplace modernization functions. In her role, Nadia leads BP's people and culture agenda for Trinidad and Tobago. She aims at discovering, empowering, and caring for all those who work for BPTT. Additionally, she holds responsibility for integrating all people initiatives between the gas and low carbon entity and BP's Trinidad business to help BP achieve its purpose for people and planet. She first joined BPTT in 2007 as a talent advisor, where she focused on building leadership, bench strength, and national capability. During her career with BPTT, she has held various roles within human resources and the business, including Global Talent Consultant UK, Senior Business Partner for Global Operations, Executive Assistant to the Regional President, BPTT, and Vice President, Human Resources at Atlantic LNG, a company to which she was seconded. Before joining BPTT, Nadia spent 3 years in the manufacturing sector at Angostura and 5 years in the insurance and asset management industry at Guardian Holdings Limited, where she held senior human resources positions. She's the holder of a Master's in Strategic Human Resources from the University of Westminster, London, and a BA in Social and Human Relations from the University of Western Ontario, Canada. Please welcome Ms. Nadia McCarthy.
All protocols observed, and good morning to all. BP is pleased to continue its support for AMCHAM's Women's Conference. This conference has grown to become a valuable forum to discuss gender parity issues and, more importantly, to create that link between global trends and insights and what we can do to address specific issues to Trinidad and Tobago. I would like to congratulate the organizers for continuing to deliver a conference that is timely as well as thought-provoking. I'm particularly captivated by the first session, which looks at how the pandemic has highlighted the inequality that exists in the workplace and wider society. I've spent the last 20 plus years working in the human resources profession, now called People and Culture at BP. I'm also a wife, a mother of 15-year-old twin girls, and in my profession, I've led a talented team of people comprised of mostly female leaders and professionals. Like everyone joining us this morning, I have grappled with the challenges brought about by the pandemic, both at an organizational and personal level. And I look forward to learning how we can use our experiences over the last 2 years to address gender issues that have intensified because of the pandemic and those that continue to maturate. This conference is part of a wider group of activities across the globe to mark International Women's Day. It's important to remember that fact because none of us, as parents, employees, leaders, or corporate citizens, can confront gender issues individually or in silos. We must rely on the support of the wider global and local ecosystem. How do we ensure that we are aligned in our approach? Well, organizations are crucial. Organizations set the framework, the culture, or the tone for employees or members, as in the case of AMCHAM. Using my organization as an example, BP's Sustainability Aim 14 puts BP's purpose into action, provides a framework, and governs how we respond to diversity, equity, and inclusion. As part of BP's purpose to improve people's lives, Aim 14 sets out that BP will increase diversity, equity, and inclusion for our workforce, our customers, and our suppliers. In fact, our new gender ambition strives for BP to be a company where gender balance is evident. To fulfill this ambition, our aim is to have, by 2025, at least equal numbers of women as men in our 120 most senior roles, and 40% of women in the next level of leadership. And by 2030, at the very latest, we aim to have women filling at least half of our most senior leadership roles and 40% at every other level of the company. Today, I am proud to share that 6 of 11 of our most senior leaders at BP are women. So this brings me to our discussion today. This year's International Women's Day theme is Break the Bias. Bias, if left unchecked, robs us of true equity. It leads to exclusion and can erode the prosperity of organizations and societies as a whole. The targets mentioned previously represent more than just numbers. They represent BP's purpose to reimagine energy for people and planet. Or to put it another way, advancing our diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda is a key strategic lever to securing a better future for everyone who works with BP. The organization creates the frame and the expectations at a wider level, but confronting and breaking bias needs to start from within. That is why bias can be an uncomfortable topic. When the issue of bias comes up, we are often forced to question ourselves and others. I acknowledge that we must confront bias at a structural level, and I am pleased to see this topic planned for session 2. However, we need to challenge the underlying thought processes. We need to look within. Ask ourselves, what are my biases? Do they affect my performance or the corporate culture or the prosperity of our country? How are we as professionals enabling others to be aware of bias? Are we enabling the bias that exists? In the words of this year's theme, how can we break the bias? It brings me pleasure that this year's theme does not ask a question, but sets us into motion. Breaking the bias is not about the if, but about the how. So how do we break the bias? Well, dialogue is crucial. Sessions and exchanges like these help us to push boundaries. Dialogue is always important in exploring and confronting issues. This is where I believe BPTT has done well. Our gender-focused panel discussions include men as participants and panelists. This helps to broaden the conversation. We see men as allies in the discussion rather than obstacles. But discussion alone is not enough to move the needle. To break the bias, we need to go further. We need to turn the discussion at forums like these into action. We need to challenge the status quo that exists and call for change. Within our organizations, we need to set targets and put resources towards attaining gender equality. And we need to hold ourselves and institutions into account. At BP, our belief is that gender representation across the company is aligned to supporting meritocracy and ensuring the talent pool for available roles remains as broad as possible. Selection for available roles will continue to be made based on merit. However, we will use our ambition to track and measure and progress, not just to mandate specific outcomes. Our focus will be on casting a broader net to attract more female applicants to BP roles, as well as to identify and address policies and processes that hinder female talent from being promoted and/or considered for future opportunities. I trust that you will hold us to account to deliver these bold statements and targets. Through the course of our discussions, I trust that you will take bold actions. You will set targets, and you will be the change that we all want to see. I trust that we'll all hold each other accountable. It is incumbent on all of us to provide and to help drive societal progress. Together, we have an important role to play. Together, we can evolve the narrative on gender equity. I'm sure all of these thoughts and many more will emerge from today's discussions. I look forward to today's discussions, and most importantly, my hope is that we turn our rich dialogue into tangible results. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nadia. Really appreciate the messages and, of course, the support of BPTT over the years for this event and others. Before I go into the third set of sponsor remarks, I just want to take a quick moment to recognize the females on the board of AMCHAM T&T, all of the accomplished women who sit on our board, starting, well, of course, you heard from Tony, our president, Vice President Greg Kwan, Patricia Ghani, former president of AMCHAM Trinidad and Tobago, Giselle Thompson of BPTT, Andrea Davis of DHL, Angelique Pariso-Potter of Massey, Anna Henderson of Amaranth, and Trisha De La Rosa Camacho of Scotiabank. I mean, you could see the breadth of industries as well as the depth of experience. And so I do it in part to put an exclamation point on the fact that we believe there is no shortage. Anybody who's saying that they can't fill an executive or board vacancy with a female because they don't know if they can find the expertise or people from the sector, we don't agree. And I think that the evidence is there to demonstrate same, okay? So it's not about tooting our own horn, although toot toot, but it is about making a point, a wider point. So speaking of experienced and ladies who have significant experience to share, we have Ms. Sonia Montes, who is the Regional Sales Director of FedEx Express for Latin America and the Caribbean. Sonia Montes is the Director of Sales for the Central American Caribbean region of FedEx Express based in Puerto Rico. She leads a diverse team of some 58 sales professionals and oversees the implementation of the company's sales strategy in Central America and the Caribbean. Sonia began her career at FedEx in 1998 as an account executive. In 2006, she was promoted to her current position, which she considers one of her greatest career achievements. Before joining the FedEx team, she worked at another express logistics company. And Sonia has a bachelor's degree in business administration with a specialization in marketing from the University of Puerto Rico. We welcome Sonia Montes and thank FedEx for joining us as one of our platinum sponsors this year for the first year, and we hope the first of many years to come. Sonia?
Good morning, and thank you. Yes, we are looking forward as well to continue to support the initiative. It is an honor to be here today and be part of the 8th Women's Leadership Conference. I want to start by thanking the Board of Directors of the American Chamber of Commerce of Trinidad and Tobago for providing a platform for an open conversation and to shed light and celebrate the many social, economic, cultural, and political achievements and contributions of women. As Nirad mentioned, my name is Sonia Montes. I am a sales director for FedEx. I am based in Puerto Rico. I am a mother of 2 precious, I would say kids. They are no longer kids. For me, they will continue to be kids forever. And I am happily married with my husband that actually we celebrate 30 years together a few weeks ago. I oversee a team of around 62 employees, sales professionals in the Central America, Caribbean, and some South America markets. And I am very proud to say that from our sales team for the region, 50% is women. And is just listening to the previous sponsors, when we are able to really continue to foster a diversity and inclusion environment, we continue to see how the team's growth and there are more career developments and opportunities for women within the companies. At FedEx, our workforce is diverse as the world we serve. So you can imagine it's big. And we believe that everyone deserves respect. Embracing diversity is not just the right thing to do. We also have proven that it fosters innovation and makes us a more competitive company. And according to the ex-US Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader, I just wanted to read for all of you one of his I admire quotes. Let me read it directly. As women achieve power, the barriers will fall. As society sees that women can do what women can do, as women see what women can do, there will be more women out there doing things and we will all be better off for it. And I just wanted to make a comment because when I look into this quote and it mentions, as women see what women can do, that's the part of the quote that I like the most, because we are the first one that needs to see the possibilities. We are the first one that need to see what is out there for us woman, and we need to fight for it. Sometimes we need to fight for it. And I am not able to see everyone that is on this virtual event, but I encourage everyone that is on this event, fight for it. And you need to be the first one not to set limits to yourself. We have the possibility, we have the capabilities, and we have the competencies to really provide opportunities to set the example and to be part of everything that is available in our workplace, in the community, everything that is out there. The multiplier effect of the woman not only supports the business and her family, but also the community and the economy at large. Women can lead with sensitivity and firmness. And I think that is our virtue. Together, we can work towards a better future for women by building, supporting, and getting involved in groups and practices that protect against gender bias, like all my sponsor peers shared today, and promote career development opportunities. We also should bring more women in the decision-making process because they bring different perspective. We bring different perspective and different competencies to the table. I want to close these remarks with a personal take. Work with focus to achieve your dreams. Believe in yourself and do not set limits. Challenges are opportunities to learn and be exposed to experiences that help us grow as women and as better human beings. Have an excellent rest of the day and enjoy this. I am sure it's going to be a great learning experience for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sonia. We really appreciate that. Now, I mean, coming in here, I was kind of warned not to tell jokes and the like, not least of which because they're sort of corny. Somebody even sent me a meme of John Oliver and Stephen Hawking, where John Oliver is asking Stephen, and they're saying that I'm John Oliver in this meme, asking Stephen Hawking when he was alive, you know, you believe in multiple universes and so on. So are you saying that there's a possibility of a universe in which there's someone who's even smarter than you? And Stephen Hawking says yes, and there's even a possibility of one in which you're funny. And of course, that was directed at me. But I couldn't help when I was putting on my purple today, think that I've pretty much been wearing purple all my life. Most of the people here would be more or less in my generation, from the Caribbean, from Trinidad and Tobago, and would know that when we were kids, when we were teens, purple means gangster and gangster means purple, and no Terra Fabula say so. And now we wear purple to show solidarity and support. So I much prefer this use of purple. And I wasn't going to say that until Sonia started speaking about what women could do. And then I started thinking about, I come to show what women can do, and, you know, but right. Okay, so now you see why they sent me the meme, right? But I can't help it. I love to embarrass myself. Anyway, so up to at this point, we're going to get a brief word from our sponsors, our platinum sponsors, and and then we come back. So can we roll that?
What
Is
Elisha.
That's a good question. Okay, let me think about it.
I've only recently heard about it.
Definitely, I've heard of allyship.
I have. Not before today, no. Allyship is building trusting relationships with underrepresented groups of persons.
An ally
There's someone
who is not a member of a marginalized group but chooses to lobby for equality for that group.
Bias is a mindset.
Having that skewed mentality.
Without actually knowing the facts of the situation.
We have to break the bias with ourselves.
Encouraging people to think differently.
Most of all, women just want you to listen to them.
We have a voice too.
Equality is
not a fad. You don't assume that you know.
Give everyone an option.
So that we could create an environment where everybody feels equal.
Listen to understand.
People can be allies to women
By encouraging and supporting.
Speak up, pass the battle. Listen as well.
The most important.
Woman in my life.
My mom and my daughter.
My mom,
Wife and my mother.
my daughter,
My mom.
My mom.
My wife and my future daughters.
Scotiabank is committed to being an active ally to women employees, customers, and communities year-round. Learn how on tt.scotiabank.com.
My name is Solange Govaya, international carnival costume designer based in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm a mom, a wife, a manager, and I've been designing costumes for the last 12 years. Carnival is my life and livelihood. From making earrings and selling them at the mass camp to now, a full-blown carnival costume business, Carnival has helped my creative dreams come true. What inspires me most is seeing my designs come to life on the road for the festival. Knowing that my designs bring happiness to thousands of people all over the world every year is the best feeling. I use FedEx to make sure my designs always make it to their destinations, wherever in the world that may be. It's always easy and always reliable. With FedEx, we're not just shipping a costume, we're shipping an experience, we're shipping the culture, we're shipping Carnival.
Beautiful, beautiful. So thanks to our platinum sponsors, Scotiabank, BPTT, and FedEx Express. We really appreciate it. I did recognize the board a little while ago, and I just want to recognize all of the ladies at AMCHAM Trinidad and Tobago. We have always been a staff. In fact, they joke that I broke the record. I broke the good trend that they had because we've always had female executive directors prior to me. But we have on the team Melissa Pear, who's our senior trade and projects officer. We have Hema Sonson, our accountant, Rianne Painter Mendez, our research and projects officer, Nirala Budu, our membership services and design officer, Michelle Lagan, who's our executive assistant and research officer, Choi Jurity, who handles all of our sponsorships, and Phyllis Johnson, who is just Miss AMCHAM. So thanks to all of the ladies who power the engine that is AMCHAM. And before I introduce Justice Whitner, I have to single out Kennedy Mirage, who did a lot to put this conference together and is definitely an ally, if I do say so myself. And actually was the one to reach out to Justice Whitner. So Kennedy, thanks for all the work you put into making today a success. We had, at the beginning of Sonia's speech, more than 370 people logged on to this event today at that time, which is almost 100 more than last year, which indicates that the event is growing because the interest is growing and hopefully the messages are resonating more and more. So we expect that by the end of the day, As people join specific sessions, we'll be up to over 450, and we look forward to that, maybe even crossing the 500, because we had more than 500 people registered. So it would be good if they all log on. Great. So it's now my real honor and pleasure to introduce our featured speaker. We're very grateful that she's agreed to join us, especially given the time difference and the fact that it's so early where she is. The Honorable Justice Helen Whitener of the Washington State Supreme Court, who will deliver our feature address. Justice Whitener was appointed to the Washington State Supreme Court in April 2020, and she was re-elected by voters to retain her position on the State Supreme Court in November 2020. Prior to her appointment to Washington State's highest court, Justice Whitener served as Pierce County Superior Court Judge. She is well recognized by the legal community for her commitment to justice and equity. In February 2022, Justice Whitener received the ABA's Stonewall Award, which recognizes members of the judiciary. And I'm just reading from the bio, but I assume that means the American Bar Association's Stonewall Award, which recognizes members of the judiciary and legal professions who have effected real change to remove barriers on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity, and who have championed diversity for the LGBT community. In 2020 and again in 2021, Justice Whitener received the International Association of LGBT Judges President's Award. In 2021, Justice Whitener was named the Public Official of the Year by Evergreen State College's Master of Public Administration program for her legal and judicial careers, which have centered on, and I quote, a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion that is a model for other judges and public service professionals. Justice Whitener is the first Black woman to serve on the Washington Supreme Court, the fourth immigrant-born justice, T&T, toot toot, and the first Black LGBT judge in the state of Washington. Justice Whitener is often invited to speak to organizations locally, nationally, and internationally on human rights, access to justice, and the responsibility of the judiciary to ensure the right of all who appear before the court to basic dignity and respect in judicial proceedings. Justice Whitener was born and raised in the great Caribbean island nation, I won't use absolute terms, of Trinidad and Tobago. She earned her BA degree in Business Administration and International Marketing from Baruch College, New York, and received her JD from Seattle University School of Law. Justice Whitener lives in Pierce County with her wife, attorney Lynn Rainey. Please welcome the Honorable Justice Helen Whitener of the Washington State Supreme Court to deliver our feature address.
Thank you. And thank you for that wonderful long introduction. Yes, I am from Trinidad and Tobago and very proud of it. I want to start first by thanking the Board of Directors of the American Chamber of Commerce of Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning to all. I was really surprised when I was asked to make some opening remarks at this year's Women's Leadership Conference. But the more I thought about it, the more I understood why. So as you convene for this conference to learn and work on breaking bias, I really wish that it was under different circumstances. Circumstances where we are judged on our character and not on labels that are used to separate us. Labels such as our race, the color of our skin, our gender, who we love, where we are from, what job we have, what title we hold, or how much money we make. These labels used incorrectly can be harmful, as they are not only used to identify us, but they are used to define us. These labels are all tied to institutional and structural systems that disenfranchises an individual or a group of individuals from opportunities. Race and inequality, gender and inequality, sexual orientation and inequality. disability, and inequality, and that's just to name a few. These labels are marginalizing as they preordain an individual's life to one of inequality, exclusion, and powerlessness. Being marginalized is not only incorrect, but it ignores the multidimensional layers of a person's identity and eviscerates their value, their worth, their very being. I go by the title Justice, as you've heard, and I sit on the Supreme Court in Washington State, in the United States of America. It is the state's highest court, and as you heard, in 2020, upon joining this court, the highest court, I became the court's first Black female justice, its fourth immigrant born, and I am still the state's only openly gay Black judge. I also became the first Black LGBTQ Supreme Court justice in the United States. And I'm a person with a disability. Living my authentic life requires resilience to avoid the risks associated with the continuous psychological distress and adversities I encounter daily. Now, I was born and raised on our multicultural island nation, Trinidad and Tobago. I was raised to stand up, stand out, and stand fast. Growing up, parents and teachers told me about my true history, and not just about white kings and queens, but rather included teachings about kings and queens who looked like me and who looked like the majority of people in the country. Vishnu, Allah, Shango, people of color. But the teachings were not just in books. Everywhere I turned, I saw people like me making great accomplishments in various fields of employment. My parents were teachers, and my dad, before passing, was a school principal. We had prime ministers, we have presidents, government officials, judges, lawyers, police, doctors, nurses, teachers, business people, where I saw them everywhere. So when I immigrated to the United States, for the first time, I encountered discrimination. And the question I asked myself was, how do I rise? How do I rise when this society keeps telling me that I don't matter? That because of the color of my skin and my gender, I'm not worthy or not equal to others? How do I rise when the very essence of my being is continuously attacked? How do I rise? How do I fit in when I know I was born to stand out? Well, even though society had a different plan in store for me, I missed the memo. The memo that said, Helen, you're Black, stay back. You're a woman, lay back. You're a lesbian, step back. You're an immigrant, go back. You're a person with a disability, fade to Black. Someone once said, to be the inspiration we were born to be and to become the leader we are meant to be, each of us must find our own voice. Prior to leaving Trinidad many years ago, I made a choice to take action. Action in how I was going to be defined by society. I became paralyzed on my right side early in my A-level studies. I immigrated to the US for medical reasons, which curtailed and changed the trajectory of where I thought I was going and what I thought I would be studying. I was 16 years old, and I had never thought of the word disability as pertaining to anyone I knew. But all of a sudden, I needed assistance from others to take care of my basic needs. My paralysis introduced me to ableism, feelings of not being included. Assumptions were made about my ability to participate with no thought as to how I may be able to participate, as my mind worked just fine. People would speak at me or over me, but not to me, as if they did not want to see me. I saw disappointment in the faces of those who continuously reminded me that they saw my disability as my lost opportunity to become one of them, accomplished, independent, and educated, a whole woman. I had to make a choice: succumb to the baggage that came with the label disabled, or rise above it. I made a choice that I was going to not only write my story, but narrate it as well. I decided that I was going to be vocal, demanding to be heard and using my voice to address the inequities I encounter. To be visible, demanding to be seen and using myself as an example to remove fear, the fear of the unknown. And I was going to be vigilant, knowing the path that I take may not be popular at times, but I was resolved in staying the course because it is the only way to effectuate change. My 3 V's: vocal, visible, vigilant. I also created 3 R's that have contributed to my growth and success as a woman. The first R is to have respect of self or self-respect. I learned that respect is a privilege and not a right. It must be earned and demanded, and sometimes it means standing fast, standing alone. The second R is being responsible to myself by understanding my own self-worth. By understanding my self-worth, self-esteem, self-regard, self-assurance, self-confidence, and self-respect all start with an understanding of one's self. In other words, we are responsible for how we see ourselves, which is then reflected on by society. Understanding our worth is a lifelong journey that never ends. My third R is to not just know the difference between right and wrong, but rather to understand the difference between the two. Success is not just about being right, it is about doing right. My mother is a typical Caribbean mother. She's a typical Trini mother. So one year when visiting me in the United States, I took mommy for an eye examination. I had just become a Superior Court judge, and I overheard a discussion my mother had with the optometrist. Mommy disclosed that I immigrated to the US at the age of 16 to attend university, and that I recently became a judge. The doctor then asked her how she feels about how I turned out. My mother's response was insightful. She told him that she was satisfied with the way I turned out. Satisfied. He was obviously surprised by her use of the word satisfied, but honestly, I was not. You see, to my parents, acquiring degrees and titles are wonderful, but expected. To them, the true accomplishments come from service to others, giving back. You see, once you find your voice, you then have a responsibility to do something with it. Speak from your own truth to empower others. So lately, there are a lot of discussions and training around dismantling systemic and structural systems of oppression, addressing bias. Dissatisfaction and a lack of confidence in private and public institutions have increased. The perception is that people don't matter to those with power, and that those leaders are part of a bigger problem. Well, to be honest, we are. We in the legal community, you in the business community, we are part of the problem. Because to address the problem of racism, sexism, misogyny, homophobia, ableism, we must first acknowledge that the problem exists. Racism is real. Sexism is real. Misogyny, homophobia, and ableism, these are all multidimensional problems, and any solution created cannot be one-dimensional. Change comes with an acknowledgement of our individual and collective identity and experiences. The rules of engagement that are required mandates that we acknowledge each person's worth. Who we are is the color of our skin, is our gender, is where we were born, is who we love, amongst other things. So when formulating solutions, as you will throughout this conference, your advocacy needs to understand the rules of engagement. How do you interact or engage with someone like me, a Black female lesbian who identifies as having a disability? Carefully. As an individual deemed less worthy because of my race, gender, or sexual orientation, I don't have the privilege of being silent on issues that affect me. So even though my perspective may not be privilege-based, it is still worthy of consideration. I already don't have much of a say because of the labeling. So why would you want to take that say that I have away? These marginalized identities overlap or intersect with systems of oppression and discrimination that remind me daily that I am not privileged. So in formulating solutions to advance women's rights, ask, how do you interact or engage with someone like me, a Black female lesbian who identifies as having a disability? Thoughtfully. You see, I'm standing over here wondering if you can see me. You invite me in, and I'm so excited to join you and to have a seat at the table. I'm just blown away by your generous act. But when I stand to join you, you seat me, close enough to be seen, but far enough away to not be heard. And when I try to speak, you silence me, making it clear that my voice is not to be heard. I then realize that everything about our interaction says, I'm to know my place. But how can I, when I know you are sitting in it? And how you see me and treat me impacts how we interact. So in formulating solutions to advance the rights of women, ask, how do you interact or engage with someone like me, a Black female lesbian who identifies as having a disability? Respectfully. There are many features that we share, but there are aspects of what makes me, me. When you look at me, what exactly is it that you see? Because I see you, but do you see me? When I speak, what exactly is it that you hear? Because I hear you, but do you hear me? We are here to work together. So why is it so hard for you to respect me? I really want to speak to you, but will you listen to what I have to say? I cannot be just a face at the table. I cannot just hold a space. I have a voice that strains to be heard as I always speak from my truth. I have so much that I want to share, but I wonder, would my narrative be understood? Women, we must stop accepting mediocrity and instead demand excellence. Excellence from ourselves and excellence for ourselves. We must understand the power of our individual voice and the power of our collective presence. We must understand our self-worth and not allow others to define who we are. Understand that sisterhood is inclusive of all women. It knows no color, it is global, and it has no boundaries. Women, this is our time. Woman is boss. You have heard of the Black Lives Matter movement, #BLM, and the Me Too movement, #MeToo. Well, this conference is the Break the Bias movement, #Break the Bias. And that means no more targeting women for the color of our skin. No more excusing bias by calling it implicit. No more treating us as second-class citizens. No more daily doses of microaggressions. No more break the bias. No more assessing our worth as connected to our genitalia. No more redefining our accomplishments as yours. No more feeling like we need to be taken care of when we can take care of each other. No more blaming us for your transgressions by attacking our credibility. No more break the bias. No more hiding who we are so you can feel comfortable in your blissful ignorance. No more loving who you want for us rather than who we want for ourselves. No more denying our sister's rights just because she was born our brother, or our brother's rights because he was born our sister. No more seeking acceptance or agreement or tolerance of our existence. No more break the bias. No more laying down rules as if we're to help. No more telling us to know our place because you're in it. No more denying us the right to stand with you simply because we are unable to stand. No more break the bias. No more break the bias. The history of systemic discrimination institutionalized in many systems within which we operate, to include the legal system, ensures that our voices as women remain unheard. To regain our voice and achieve success requires that we understand the connectivity between all of our lives and the intersectionality of the problems we all face. I work in the law, and a core legal principle in the law of civilized nations is that everyone must be treated equally without special privileges, discrimination, or bias. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, "Equal justice is the glue of stability, and judicial leadership is critical to human rights advancement." Leadership as a whole, I proffer, is critical to human rights advancement. We must aim to promote public confidence that our institutions, our firms, our businesses are fair with the equity, fairness, and protection of all individuals' rights as its goal. Diversity is a human rights issue, which includes the maxim of acceptance and respect. It entails understanding that each individual is unique and recognizes our individual differences. Women, we have fought for the right to sit at the table, and those of us who are privileged to be seated do not become complacent with having obtained a seat. Be vocal. Demand not just to be heard, but demand to be understood. Otherwise, you are wasting a seat by being silent with inaction. Women, as you go through this conference, remember that our struggles are one, and our strength is in our numbers. Even though we have differences, we are not truly different. To address bias and to make sustainable change, all it takes is just one person, one move, one vote, one woman. But imagine how powerful it is with all of us women. The law is a powerful tool that I use to effectuate change, embracing and protecting vulnerable groups from exclusion. You can do the same. We are all responsible to each other to create an inclusive environment, and it must be inclusive at all times. We all have a responsibility to each other to be truly inclusive at all times in these efforts. I thank you for allowing me to share in this space and for giving me a place where my voice can be heard. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Justice Whitener. Yeah, I mean, we could applaud individually, or I know Tony is bursting, as we all are. I was taking notes and I was going to re-say some of the things you said, and then I stopped because I don't know where to start, in that you gave us so many important messages, and I think different people will take different things from what you said. So I really, really want to thank you and Kennedy for introducing us to you, for coming here today and sharing so freely of your time, but of your story and your advice, because I think just wow. I don't know how to say it otherwise. Just wow. Thank you very much. Yeah. I do want to take the liberty of highlighting one thing that is not germane to the topic at hand, but I think important for us contextually, as 400 people who are gathered here today. We have many problems in Trinidad and Tobago. There are problems in every country. We are facing more problems today in some ways than we were before. But when Justice Whitener said that she didn't experience discrimination until she left, I think that's an important thing and really valuable, that we sometimes take for granted in Trinidad and Tobago. Not just who we are as a people, but how we live, and the importance of that. And as a person whose navel string is buried here, I think it's nice to hear sometimes some good about our country. So, but not to take away from the more important and bigger messages. So, Justice Whitener, again, thank you so very much for all of this. With your permission, we're going to extract this segment of the conference, especially, and maybe put it up on YouTube. I've already gotten some requests, and I know I want to share it with my daughter. If you don't mind, sorry to ask you publicly, I should have done that privately. Yeah, okay. Thank you so much. All right, so we are, I mean, I don't know Thank you. Thanks for your time. We know you have to go on to other things. So thanks very much. We are at the end of our opening ceremony. So we want to thank all of the speakers who have made, I mean, the conference is off to a great start. If what I feel is what you guys feel. So we want to thank all the speakers really and all of the companies who have participated this far. Remember that the applications for the Women's Leadership Mentorship Program, they're on the website. Are we on the event website or the AMCHAM website team? But I'll get back to you on that with confirmation. But we do encourage you, if you want to be a mentor or if you want to be a mentee, they're on both websites. So both on the conference website, which is where you came into the event, as well as the AMCHAM T&T website, that's amchamtt.com. If you want to mentor, if you want to gain the approval of Justice Whitener's parents by giving back and you are willing to mentor, we would certainly appreciate that. And of course, if you would like to be mentored, then please sign up. And you can possibly do both, right? So you can be a mentor to someone who's early in their career while seeking while being a mentee of someone who might be a little further along in their careers, right? So also don't forget to take part in our WLC2022, taking care of me personally and professionally, competition and promotion to collect points and will cool prizes sponsored by our friends at Inca Services. I want to thank Leslie Leafolk and his team. You and Hira Spa. So you get, I think you're getting a free entry to the 2-day data science course, as well as a manicure for those who win. So taking care of your mind and your body to some extent. We invite all of today's attendees to follow the actions on the promotion page and for a chance to win, collect points. So you have a chance to win some prizes. We've come to the end of the opening ceremony and we're a little behind time. So this is the end of the first session. Are we taking a quick break or are we jumping right into the next session? I think we should at least stand up, stretch, make sure a bathroom break for those who need it, water, make sure, sitting for too long is not good. My father-in-law tells me that all the time. We take it's 11:33. Team, can we restart at 11:45? Okay, I'll make an executive decision and we'll restart at 11:45. Okay, so we come back to the no to she session at 11:45. Thank you so much, everyone. Those of you who joined us and spoke, see you in a little bit.